A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
Star Wars: Reputation, a Cad Bane Tale, by Ari Marmell, 2012. This tale takes place 8 years after the invasion of Naboo in 24 BBY, and serves as an origin story for Cad Bane. Created and read by the Archivist Publishing. The distant flash would only have been mistaken as lightning by an off-worlder, one whose senses did not have enough familiarity with, and therefore could not differentiate between the artificial residue left by the flash, which was likely caused by a long-forgotten transformer, versus that of crisp natural lightning, which was always accompanied by that ozone-rich smell of energy. Similarly, the artificiality of the water puddled around him was equally as evident by its stench as by its high viscosity, as it oozed as much as dripped, more akin to overused and fouled motor oil than water. Secure in his vantage point of the rooftops below, the hunter remained absolutely still and waited. To keep his mind focused, he reflected on the events leading up to his current enterprise. His former mentor had often expounded upon the importance of a solid reputation, as well as the merits of developing a shrewd specialization in order to truly achieve infamy as a bounty hunter. It was as much his adherence to his former mentor's teachings as to his mentor's sudden disappearance several years earlier that had precipitated his current level of recognition amongst other bounty hunters, although having worked with the likes of Jango Fett and Aura Singh certainly did not detract from his high standing throughout the underworld. Additional astute specialization would be useful in elevating his status further, he thought contemplatively, as he flicked a long drop of greasy water from the brim of his hat, which had accumulated from the persistent rainfall. It wasn't even genuine rain pattering down around him, muting the hum of the speeders and skiffs high above. Real rain could never have wormed its way among the various obstacles to reach the city's lower levels. No, this was condensation, dripping from the undersides of bridges, roadways, and Tagaco grav cranes overhead. Oily, polluted, stinking and stinging, it was enough to drive almost anyone to seek the nearest shelter. Almost anyone, not the hunter. Broad-brimmed hat and sturdy coat of Nashta hide shed the putrid water as efficiently as any force field, but even if they hadn't, the figure crouched beneath them would likely never have noticed the precipitation. From a flat and leathery face beneath that brim, the sinister crimson eyes of Aduros peered not at the multitude of towers above and ledges below, or the glimmering of 1,000 lights, but into the years ahead. War was coming. Most people didn't like to think about it, didn't want to admit it. They pretended the Trade Federation's recent embargoes were flukes, ignored the growing whispers of separation and secession from the outer rim systems, placed an almost religious faith in the new Chancellor's abilities to reunite a fractious Senate. He knew better, the Hunter did. He could smell it in the air across the length and breadth of the Republic. Might be a few years yet, but war it would be. And there was money to be made in war. A lot of money. More wealth than even the greediest Corellian could imagine. But he needed the name, the reputation, to claim it, which was why he'd taken this fool's errand of a job in the first. His eyes snapped back into focus with a single blink at the sudden vibration in the metallic band on his left wrist. Something had tripped the portable sensor field, which, independent from the building's internal security and not nearly as easily bypassed, the Duros had placed on the roof below. Indeed, even as he rose for a better view, a glimmer of green luminescence shone, briefly but brightly, from a darkened hatch.
Suppose it's about that time, then,
the Hunter muttered, his voice a rasping, rolling growl. Spindly fingers ran across the custom blasters at his waist in a final check, and then he was off and running. Coat flowing behind him like wings and boots spraying a wake of filthy water, the bounty hunter hit the edge of the platform and leapt.
Blast doors down! Blast doors down!
Aris Ur-etu, lord of the youthful but rich and brutal Skarkla consortium, cringed at the sound of his own voice, shrill enough to drown out the slamming of the heavy slabs. He knew it made him sound panicked, even cowardly, and couldn't do a bleeding thing about it. When the Bothan crime boss grew agitated, his shadow-gray fur stood on end and his voice screeched like the felines he so greatly resembled. Still, whatever his people thought of his bravery, or lack thereof, they obeyed. Half a dozen guards, human and otherwise, crouched throughout the room or flattened themselves against the walls. Blasters and slug-throwers trained on the nigh-impregnable door. Ur-etu himself clutched a holdout blaster in one paw, hidden behind his magnificent desk of blood-red greel wood.
Is it him?
He demanded, his tone now slightly more under control. He ran his empty paw over his head, as though he could force his fur to relax.
Are we certain it's him?
A bronze-scaled Trandoshan thug opened his maw to speak, but the answer quickly became moot. A pinprick of glowing heat blossomed through the blast door. Molten durasteel trickled from the breach, disturbingly like seepage from a ruptured cyst. Swiftly and smoothly, that point became a line, tracing its way down the surface of the door. Ur-etu could practically envision the brown-robed figure on the other side, lightsaber pressed tight against the portal.
As he likes it, then.
The Bothan sneered, his worry drowning in a growing tide of anger.
I don't know why this Jedi's been interfering with my operations, or what happened to the bounty hunter who's supposed to get him out of my fur. But it ends here. The instant that door opens, I want that hallway filled with enough blaster fire to charbroil a hut.
Guards grunted, fingers flexed on triggers and firing studs. As slowly, methodically, the sizzling outline in the blast door grew. When the cut was finally complete, a chunk of durasteel simply slid away and toppled into the chamber. Clearly, the Jedi had canted the cut downward so gravity alone would do the job of moving the heavy slab. Had any of Ur-etu's men been fool enough to stand too close, they would have been pulped. This audiobook was developed 100% using artificial intelligence to generate realistic and familiar voices.